There are certain things in everyone's life that can cause us to lose ourselves in the moment. We get swept away by a very heavy emotional response because something triggered some memory, muscle memory in our mind and body that reminded us from some moment in our past where we felt threatened, either physically or our ego feels threatened. And in these moments from our past where we felt physically or mentally threatened, as a defense mechanism, our body and mind remember the incident, even if our conscious mind does not, so that when we are in a similar situation, we can instinctually and immediately seek out safety. This is an incredible system in our body that protects us. And it is why we are all alive today, because our ancestors, after putting their hand in fire once, made sure to stay away from fire ever since. So fire became their trigger, and their response was get to safety. Today, that trigger response defense mechanism is causing us to see threats everywhere we look, because instead of a real threat like a fire or a tiger, our threats today are perceived from other people, often from when we were young children, often a cruel word spoken to us by another child or maybe an adult. And it was during a time in our lives where we didn't know how to best deal with cruel words of others. And so a lot of us have this stunted growth inner child within us that comes out when it is triggered by something that is similar to something that happened in our youth. It can be someone telling us what to do, which triggers that feeling from childhood when a teacher or parent told us to do something we didn't want. Or it could be a hurtful comment that when we were children caused a very strong emotional response. But triggers go much deeper than just that same similar type of traumatic experience occurring. For example, we may smell the perfume of someone who was mean to us when we were young, and that can trigger us. We can drive by the street where we were in a car accident, and that can create a triggering emotional response within us. And while this is designed to help us and help us survive, if we don't do the work to heal from these traumatic experiences properly, then stepping outside of our home, walking out the front door, can become triggering, because everything can remind us of a traumatic event in our lives. And so in order to overcome that deeply rooted trigger response, it's essential that we do two things. Number one, heal from that trauma. And the second thing we need to do is desensitize ourselves to triggers. And the way we do that is not by wishing it wasn't there, hating that part of us that holds on to the trauma. And it's not done by taking revenge or dulling our senses with drugs and alcohol. In fact, we need to do the complete opposite and love our trauma, embrace our pain, and make peace with our pain. This is the only way to heal our trauma. We have to face it. We have to go into the darkness and face that which we fear most. We must bravely explore those dark corners of our mind. And what we will find, the same as in life, that what we were most afraid of was not as scary as the fear of that thing. Only in our mind can fears be built up so much that we can fall into despair. Anything that any of us can face in this world, we can overcome it. Humans have overcome a great many hardships. And the more we are able to sit straight up with a straight back, with our head held high in meditation, and we face our fears, and we look at our trauma, and we spend some time becoming friends with this darkness, and we don't slouch or cower in fear, yet we remain firm with our head held high, and we look with courage so that we can find the truth with clarity, that we are safe, that we are strong, that we are capable of responding to the situations in our lives with presence and intention, and not with an automatic response based on a tragic experience from our past. The more time we sit with these traumatic events in our mind, and the more time we visualize those triggers and we visualize that experience, the more familiar they become, and the less that trigger response gets each time we visualize that memory, that experience, and those triggers. Every single time we visualize that event and those triggers, and we don't react mindlessly and unconsciously, the more we can face these triggers without them eliciting that heavy emotion. But we have to face our fears if we are going to overcome them. To the mind, it doesn't know the difference between visualization and something happening in real life. So when we prepare to be triggered in the safety of our own home, we are practicing creating a new response, both internally on a physical level, so that our heart rate doesn't elevate, our blood pressure doesn't shoot up, our heart doesn't start to race, and externally, we can choose consciously, wisely, how to respond in order to lead to the most desirable outcome. So those are the two ways we can deal with triggering situations: to heal through facing those difficult experiences in our past in a safe, loving, and warm, supportive environment. And the second thing is to desensitize ourselves by visualizing those triggering situations in advance. And the very last thing that we can all do to help us respond mindfully to triggers is to change the way we view triggers. At the moment, we may think triggers are something to be avoided, and we may plan our life around avoiding those triggers. But we need to look at triggers as a good thing, because if we have fear of trigger, then we're not free from the trigger. And so if we choose to avoid certain people or places, that's totally fine. But when a trigger occurs in our life, we can appreciate that moment because we just learned a new trigger we weren't aware of before, or we learned that a trigger may appear in an unexpected place. And all this does is just feeds into our meditation and visualization practice, helps us grow even further, helps us expand our consciousness, and we can be grateful for these moments. And we can even be grateful if we fail to respond mindfully, because even that shows us where more work is needed to be done. We can let go of painful memories, and our minds and bodies will still protect us. We can let go of fear and stress, and we can still protect ourselves. Fear and stress and negativity only cloud the mind and our judgment. When we are fully present and alert, we are our most protected. We are our most safe. When we lose ourselves to heavy emotions, we become vulnerable. This is why the ancient spiritual martial artists would practice so that they would be ready, so that they could respond without panicking. They did the exact same technique. They were ready for what would trigger an emotional response, such as the anger from being attacked. And over again, they controlled their response until they maintained full presence, full alert awareness, full control of their mind and body. And we too can develop that control.